You're listening to How to 20-something, the best podcast that helps both men and women navigate their 20s and learn how to adult across all aspects of their lives. We're going to focus on career, relationships, finances, fitness, nutrition, and all of the common challenges and obstacles a typical 20-something will face in this post-college life. I'm your host, Jess Diamond, and I am the CEO and founder of Jess Diamond Coaching, where I help young professionals get their shit together, gain their confidence, and own their life. No one prepares you for this adulting world, so allow me to help you feel like you are no longer a chicken running around with its head cut off and that you actually know what the hell is going on and what your next step to take is. Welcome to How to 20-something. But before we dive into all the fun stuff of this episode, I wanted to come on here and remind you guys that next Monday, September 22nd, is my workshop. It is called It's Me, I'm the Problem, and it is to help you with the number one reason why there is friction in your relationships and what you can do about it. So I'm taking you through 4 steps, a couple of exercises, a very collaborative community. It's a really good time, and I want to see you there. So please do not forget to sign up. It's happening again next Monday, September 22nd at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And all you have to do is register using the link in the show notes or by heading to justdiamondcoaching.com/problem, entering your name and email, and then I'll send you the Zoom link. You don't have to worry about anything else besides blocking off your calendar and showing up and get ready to learn. Put on a little bit of your thinking caps, not too much because it is a Monday. But seriously, I design these workshops with you guys in mind and with the things that I know will help you. So you should really come. Go register, sign up, join the call live. You could even catch the replay, but in order to do that, you still have to register for the call. All right, now back to the show. Welcome back to another episode of How to 20-something, where today I'm going to break down what to do when you feel like you're in the in-between, where you're not at your next destination, or maybe you're on the brink of reaching your next goal, but you're actively working towards getting there, or you know time has to play out before you can make your next move. It's also when you've moved on from one chapter, but haven't fully entered into this next one. Like when you graduate college and then you're waiting before you start your first full-time job or even land your first full-time job. The result is being in this feeling of in the middle. And it's a frustrating place to be because of the delayed gratification and patience required of you to stay focused and keep your eyes on the prize, knowing that you are going to get there in due time and that you want to get there faster than the pace you're currently at. This is in regards to anything you're setting your mind to. It could be a new job, a healthier body, a next stage of a relationship in general, making friends, a business endeavor, feeling settled in your new city, even seasons, I feel, as we're approaching the end of summer and we're antsy for fall, for that fall weather and those fall decorations to come out. That's that in between. So think any major exciting transition in your life where you have your eyes set on what's next, on some end result or next result, but you know it won't happen for you just yet. But here's the trap that you're probably not thinking about, and that is when you're so focused on what's next, you might catch yourself in an I'll be ready when, I'll be happy when moment. So you forget all the joys of now, all the firsts that comes with approaching this next big milestone that you'll never get again, and the increasingly large expectation for this outcome to be life-changing. And it might be life-changing for you, but you're putting a lot of pressure on what's next, and that can be a setup for disappointment. The in-between is a very frustrating place to be, like I said. It truly tests your patience and how bad you want what you're after. I can personally reflect back on so many in-between moments that took place throughout my 20s and that are currently taking place for me. It's why I live by my mental model of it's not forever, it's for now. Because when you are down on yourself for not being where you want to be yet, or when you wish you could speed up a timeline you're on, even though you know in the long term it's best to wait, you need to remind yourself that this current state of existence, this discomfort of the in-between, is temporary. It's not forever. but it is where you're at right now. And there are still moments in the now, a lot of moments in the now, that you can enjoy. This motto came into existence for me when I knew I was moving out of Orlando and pursuing my own business, ditching the 9-to-5 world, and essentially reinventing my entire life in March of 2022. I came to this conclusion and the start of this plan in April of 2021. So I had 11 months of waiting, of planning, of learning, of saving. And I remember in November of that year, I was so ready to embark on my coaching business and seriously considered quitting my job 5 months earlier than I planned. I was at a coaching conference actually when I was at this crossroads, because at this point, I was truly in the in-between. I could not be more in the middle of where I was to where I wanted to be than in that moment, since I had 5 months until my lease was up and had been sitting on this vision for 6 months at this point. And we did an exercise to help with big decisions. I actually recreated it in one of my past workshops, From Doubt to Decision, and I've definitely talked about this on past episodes. It's where you figuratively put your two options out in front of you, as if you're standing in a V, where you're at the point of the V, and then you go and step diagonally forward to one option, and feel into the life that would result of you making that choice and everything that unfolds after that. Then you take a step back, shake it off to be in a neutral energy ground, and do the same to the other option. And what happens is your body tells you what option is better for you to take. So when I did this exercise at this conference, I was stuck between wait the 5 more months or quit my job right now, and the outcome was I would be at a lot more peace if I waited and stuck to my original timeline. The caveat, I had to persist in the state of in-between for 5 more months. So what do you do when you're hanging out in the space? How do you help your brain and remind yourself to wait and that it's better to wait? Outside of repeating my mental motto, although that was extremely helpful, I'm going to share with you what I did and what I continue to remind myself of. Because it's easy to see and want your vision. It means you're working towards something. You just can't taste the victory or success yet, but you know it's coming. And as time goes on, you grow increasingly impatient since you don't have it yet. And that's what this episode is about. What to do when you're in the in-between, or I guess 5 things to remember when you find yourself in the in-between. The first thing to remember is kind of cheesy, but it's acknowledging that where you're currently at serves a purpose too. It's your bridge. You're gathering what you need. Information, supplies, people, money that will help you move to your next thing with ease. It's your place of planning and preparing. I'm a Floridian, so that first metaphor that comes to mind is when you're prepping for a hurricane. The storm isn't there yet, but right now you're experiencing this beautiful weather, and it's really hard to imagine the severity of the storm that's about to come for when it hits. But you also know you need to prepare for when it does, even when you can't see it yet. So you get batteries, flashlights, candles, radios, bring in the patio furniture, board up the windows, and stock up on non-perishables. And sometimes you don't end up needing any of that, but you did need to prepare. In this case, the storm is actually your next thing and not some destructive force of Mother Nature, but something very exciting and positive for you. But the analogy still works. When I was transitioning from corporate to self-employed, my prep came in the form of saving money, like a squirrel stocking up nuts for winter. So this in-between time is actually extremely valuable, and the longer it is, the more time you have to prepare and the easier your transition will be. When there's not enough time in between, it's pure chaos. You are running around like a chicken with its head cut off, trying to get everything organized and in order. So while it is uncomfortable to have a longer waiting period before you get to your next destination, it is actually better and smarter to give yourself this time in limbo. I kind of already mentioned this one, but your second thing to remember is don't delay your own happiness. Reverting back to I'll be happy when syndrome. Your next chapter will hopefully bring you an insane amount of happiness. But if you're only focused on that next thing, you're losing all of the potential happiness you can create right now. Your next thing is not your only defined marker of achieving happiness, and it's important to remember that. Yes, you're antsy and excited and have all the emotions for what's to come, but try to create your own sparks right now. You can still learn a new skill, try a new recipe, meet a new friend, watch a sunset, have a relaxing Saturday morning, spend time with friends, call a loved one. There's potential for happiness everywhere. So don't only rely on waiting for what's next. The hardest part is when your in between is not a happy place for you to be, and you know that anything else would automatically make you happier. But you can change your words from "I'll be happy when" to "I'll be even happier when." That way you aren't stripping the possibility of happiness away right then and there. And I get it though. Most of these transitions that have you caught in the in-between are because you weren't happy and are doing something about it, or are actively striving to turn things around. Or things came to a natural conclusion and you're in la la land right now. I could give so many of my own examples and client examples of being in the shittier part of the in-between, like when you lose your job. Maybe you got furloughed or laid off. Maybe you quit because you were miserable. I had a client who was laid off and knew exactly what he wanted in his next job, but the market was not working in his favor and he didn't have a lot of the job finding tactics lined up. None of the successful ones, I'll say. So he was unemployed for far longer than he ever expected. And that layoff period was his in-between. Now it became a matter of keeping his eyes on the prize and not settling for any job just to have a job, but sticking to his own list of non-negotiables. The work we had to do was to keep his mind leveled so he could be more patient with the outcome he was really hoping for. The result was him landing the most perfect job and is now thriving. Yes, it was stressful, long, annoying, and frustrating to be in the position of no income, but now he has a job that won't put him in the in-between for a while, if ever again. For me personally, I'll take my dating life, for example. I was single for almost 3.5 years, and I'll admit that the first 2 years I was healing and focusing on my business and making friends. I had just moved to Charlotte, so I was preoccupied. I wanted a relationship, but I didn't feel ready or confident enough to bring someone new into my life like that. And then at the start of 2024, I was ready. So the active search and effort had me in the in-between with my dating life. I was finally at a place where I had friends, a sufficient income, a life, and I had space for someone new. My life wasn't on hold as I searched for a partner, and that's how I ended up meeting my boyfriend, by playing pickup soccer, because it was something I wanted to go do on a Sunday evening. And now, my dating life is no longer in the in-between. The in-between exists in every area of your life where you have a goal set to achieve and are actively taking steps towards trying to achieve it. So the third thing to remember is how you measure your progress will impact your relationship to the journey you're on. In other words, collect those wins. You might not be able to track something as literal as a weight loss or fat loss journey. What have you done this week? Or what can you do this week to bring you one step closer to where you want to be? And keep a log of everything you're accomplishing along the way so you have something concrete to refer back to for when your brain starts to spiral and gets fed up with still being in the in-between. It could be lifting heavier at the gym week after week, having a consistent gym regimen you've been able to maintain, going to networking events and talking to people because you want a new job, going on dates, crappy or not, but forcing yourself to talk to new people and get a clear idea of what you want versus don't want in a partner. It could be having a no-spend week so you can save more money. Think of your goals, the big juicy one that has you feeling like you're in the in-between right now, and write down what you can do to move an inch closer. But here's the tricky part. Sometimes it is just a waiting game, where the only thing you can do is let time do its thing, which is where I want to remind you about number 2, with not putting your happiness on hold. But I'd even argue that when you're waiting for time to go by, having your little countdown date pinned up somewhere, you're still taking action to organize your mind or your space for when that countdown hits 0, bringing us back to number 1. So that's still progress you can make while you're waiting. Which on that note, you absolutely positively need to have an end date. Otherwise, you will perpetually be stuck in the in-between. That's where people get lost. They keep saying one day or someday. Like, no, have a date. Have an end in sight that is tangible, within reach, but also not too close where you'll stress yourself out. For example, this is a bad example. I met a guy, Alex, at hot yoga a few months ago, and we got to chit-chatting afterwards where he was asking about my business and schedule, and he said he has a dream of also leaving his corporate job, to which I told him, have a deadline to work towards. I probably should have specified a longer deadline because the following week he told me he picked one and that he'll be leaving his job in 7 weeks. Mind you, he's 25, I think, and barely had any savings in place to support this transition to his own clothing business that was currently not bringing in a ton of money. We had this conversation. So have a deadline, but have a realistic one that you can actually plan for and put proper systems in place so you come out successful on the other side of the in-between and not stressed. And I get it. It's really hard to have a deadline that's far away because all you want is to be doing your next thing right now. As soon as you get the idea, you want it to come true that instant. But be patient. It'll save you down the road. Like my decision to stick to my original leave corporate timeline helped me save thousands of more dollars to support my next adventure. On the topic of patience, the fourth thing to keep in mind is don't forget to slow down. We are so quick to go from one thing to the next, but the periods of slowness are so beneficial to avoiding burnout. You can't expect yourself to constantly be on the go all the time, or that if you work super duper hard, you'll speed up your timeline. Sustainable effort is key. Having a routine, a plan, and an end date, all the things I've been saying and will continue repeating, will be boring, but it will keep you sane and calm. Because the worst thing you could do is hustle hard and then burn yourself out and need a timeout, but then feel guilty about taking a timeout. I've said this on other episodes, but I've had conversations with people where they'll come into the gym and say they had to take a break and are just now getting back into it because they felt burnt out. In other words, they had a spark of motivation to be healthier and went all out and exhausted themselves from continuing to work out. Slow and steady wins the race, baby. Think about what you can uphold consistently in your current lifestyle, knowing that things can increase or decrease as time goes on, as goals become more clear, as schedules change, etc. But don't overshoot because you're excited at this present moment to make strides towards your next thing. If it's dating, how many dates can you commit to on a weekly basis? If it's a new relationship, how many times can you see this person without overwhelming your schedule and prior commitments? If it's a job hunt, how much time can you allocate a week towards finding a new job, and so on and so forth? Starting small and slow will help you build up what you can handle in your schedule so you don't burn yourself out. The last thing to remember for when you're in the in-between is you are forming a new identity. It takes time and can be very tricky. You are shedding off something that no longer serves you and molding into something new. But that doesn't mean your next job title, scale, weight, or relationship status is who you are. It's who you're becoming as you strive for those next levels, not what those next levels label you as. So who are you outside of all of that? It's hard because when you're in the middle spot, you know you're no longer who you were, but you're also not yet who you're becoming. And that makes you feel like you're losing a large piece of your identity. And yes, that is part of your identity, but that's the external part. So pause and ask who you are internally. It's not what you do, it's what you value and how you show up or what you want to be known for. So while you might feel like you're struggling with a sense of identity, and I'll tell you straight up, you are probably struggling with your identity when you're in this in-between, it doesn't mean you are without an identity because you've shed what isn't you but haven't fully stepped into this new you yet either. So what do you value? Where are your priorities? How can you create your own sense of worth without all of the titles and labels? And something that I find helpful, and I started doing this when I was fed up with being in the in-between while waiting for my lease to end in Orlando so I could move and pursue my business, was claiming my next identity before I got there. Like when I met new people and they asked what I did for a living, I stopped saying I was an interior designer and I started saying I was a health and life coach. When I was single, I stopped saying I was perpetually single and claiming singleness as my identity, and I started saying I'm working on getting into a relationship. You have to be really careful with the words you choose to describe yourself, because without knowing it, you might be keeping yourself stuck because you're claiming this new identity that you actually don't want. If your words are more forward-thinking, you will be naturally inclined to move towards them to make them true. You're not a starving artist or a struggling entrepreneur. You're working on your craft and building a business. The bottom line is you're not stuck. You're building what's next. Just don't get lost in the in-between and keep your eyes on the prize, because you will get out of this middle ground and be on to that next thing in no time. And that's how I'm going to wrap up this episode of 5 things to remember when you're in the in-between. So, if you liked what you heard, if you feel like you're in the in-between right now or have a friend who is, then please share this episode. Post it on social media, send it to that friend, give me a 5-star rating, but seriously, help me spread this podcast, because I'm only one person and all of you listening will have the capabilities of doubling the impact I have on all of the 20-somethings out there trying to do life and adult. And as always, I can't wait to be in your headphones again next week with another brand new episode.